I think we should begin. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. Extremely happy to have all of you here today. So to begin with, I'm Lavina. I'm from Eventpreneur. This session today is actually really important. It is a subject on mental health. Mental health has not really been addressed of late too much, especially since the pandemic has started. I know that we're all going through our own issues. We're all going through anxiety. We're all going through a certain amount of depression. Overnight, we were just, COVID was thrown into our face, and everything just went out of whack for all of us. So I was extremely happy one day when Ratika Bhatnagar called me from Pilcro Communications, and she said, let's do something on mental health. And thus was born this idea of Mind Matters from her. I was extremely happy to partner with this initiative because, we all are dealing with this. We're all dealing with this, and we thought it's about time that let's just put this all out there together. Let's talk about this a little more. Let's bring it out into the open, and let's just take this idea forward. Ratika was kind enough to bring some great people together. All of us pooled in our resources, and we just brought everyone onto this platform together. So I'm going to call on Ratika.
Thank you, Lavina and Eventpreneur, for giving us this wonderful platform. Thank you so much for your kind introduction as well. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ratika, and I'm from Pilcro Communications. I want to thank all of you for joining us today, because I know that we all have so many online meetings and workshops and webinars that we all have webinar fatigue. And we really appreciate that you've taken this time to join us and be part of this. I'm also very proud to be sharing this platform with some great industry leaders and icons and experts. We're grateful that they've taken out time to be a part of this session. And I'm sure that their talk is going to leave us encouraged and inspired. We are honored to have with us Sabbas and Brian, who are industry giants in India, and of course, most of us know them. We also have Will Travis here to show us that this is not an isolated incident. It's a global pandemic. And he brings on this global perspective to this whole thing. They tell us how, you can fold, or you can take this time to teach yourself to fly. It's something that we all have to do, right? We have to do. We have that ability inside of us to take this as it comes and go beyond it. So they're going to tell us how they've dealt with this crisis, how they've reinvented themselves and used this to pivot. Dr. Prakriti, who's a very dear friend of mine, is a leading expert on mental health. She has a brilliant program on how, when we feel like we're whizzing out of control, how we can regain control of the steering wheel of our life. So we're happy to have her and show us how. We all know that besides the isolation and uncertainty that the pandemic is bringing, financial well-being is a very, very important part. So we're glad that Kavita Hari is also here to guide us on how to achieve financial well-being. So when we first approached Lavina to collaborate on this session, she asked us, like a lot of other people, why? Like, what does this have to do with Pilcro? I mean, it's a great idea, but what does Pilcro have to do with mental well-being? So, the Pilcro Communications is an event and entertainment experiential marketing company. And events are all about collaboration. It takes a lot of people to put together a great experience. There's sound, stage, light, artists, government people, corporates, internal teams, external team, a lot of people. And these people have to be confident, right? So we know that events is all about a lot of planning, and then at the end, it's all crisis management. And it's true, not just of events, but also of other industries, right? Where we work together with the support of a lot of people. So I was part of this event managers group on WhatsApp, which is great. They're always there to help each other in times of crisis. It has this lovely tagline, we rise by lifting others. And now, we are privileged to have access to Dr. Prakriti and to Wellbeing Volunteers United. And we thought that at this time, we can share with our industry and with people out there is something that we can share in this time of crisis. So we're privileged to have Prakriti and Poddar Wellness. They have this great platform called Wellbeing Volunteers United. This is a free helpline available where you can call anonymously and seek at least an initial amount of help by trained counselors. And if you are one of those lucky ones who don't need the help, then we request that you volunteer your time and, take the training to help others, to counsel others. So I'm going to leave this. I'm not going to take too much of your time because we have these wonderful speakers. I'm just going to say, while we're maintaining physical distance, let's not be emotionally distant. Let's reach out for help. Let's reach out to help. Thank you. Let's begin.
Thank you so much, Ratika. I'm just going to jump in here and introduce our first speaker for today, our keynote speaker, Mr. Sabbas Joseph. I don't think he needs any introduction. Everyone here already knows who he is. Sabbas, I'm extremely honored and humbled to have you here today with us. I know that there's a lot of things that you will have to share with the industry. There's a lot of, a lot of people look up to you for guidance, for the way forward. So just, tell us, what are your thoughts on this? How are we looking at overcoming this pandemic as an industry? Waiting to hear from you.
Thank you, Lavina. Thank you, Ratika. Thank you, Rohini. It's a delight to be here. And honestly, I'm humbled that you're taking this initiative, and it's a very positive initiative. Okay. We all face a fairly negative environment around us. And I've seen many steps being taken, but this one I can definitely define as an extremely positive step. I'm delighted to share this call and a session with my beloved friend, Brian, my co-traveler on this journey of life and events and the event industry. And of course, just met with over this call with Prakriti, saw Kavita and Will, and so delighted to share this platform with all of you. Mind matters. 30% of the companies don't have the resources to continue being on the business runway. 70% of the employees are wondering whether their companies will survive, whether they will have jobs in our industry or have to look elsewhere, or when does the next check come in. 100% employees are reeling under salary cuts and are wondering how to deal with their fixed expenses, family commitments, etc. I mean, the same goes for owners too. 100% are wondering whether the situation is temporary or permanent. The concerns are large, whether the situation is temporary or permanent. The concerns, when you compound this across industries in hospitality, tourism, sports, advertising, media, television, cinema, music, manufacturing, etc., the reality will hit us very, very hard. The reality will hit you hard. And you'll suddenly realize that what we in the event industry are facing is almost nothing compared to what the others are already facing. Yes, it's a fact that we in the event industry will probably be the last one of the rails to come back to normalcy. Because anything that has contact is the last thing that you want to get engaged with. Low touch, no touch, exactly what physical distancing is all about. We call it social distancing because that's the net result. In physical distancing, we have socially distanced ourselves from each other. Whilst we've tried to distance ourselves physically, there is no need for us to do it socially. There is no need for us to do it mentally, emotionally, psychologically, and every other way. Physical, and I would love to have redefined that social distancing concept as a physical distancing concept. Faced with this hard reality, how do you deal with it? To start with, don't run away. When at sea in a storm, sailors lower their sails. When a cyclone breezes in, trees will bend. The ones that are most flexible and agile will survive. Tough times don't last. Tough people do. What do you do in an opportunity like this? I'm calling it an opportunity. Every company has been flattened. You today have the opportunity to dream big, dream beyond. I'm looking beyond the pandemic. Today, we are in a digital realm wherein even if we want to be in the physical space, everything around us tells us, please don't. For ourselves, for the benefit of ourselves, and for the benefit of others, stay at home. But this digital is going to change to phygital very soon. And why do I call it phygital? Because you will be physical and at the same time, it will be digital. Because digital is not going to go away. The new realm in which we will work in, the new business environment will be phygital, where physical and digital will mellifluously work together as one. All I'll call you to do today is look for opportunity in this new realm. Create opportunity. Create new opportunities that never existed before. I know some friends who are taking on business orders for PPE suits for the army, PPE suits for the railways, PPE suits for the BMC. People have taken on consignments and assignment for masks. Someone's providing gloves, importing it from Malaysia and providing it in India, importing it from Malaysia and providing it in the US. And the Malaysian manufacturers have run out of options. So where do the next set of masks come from? No one wants it from China. Yes, new opportunities have emerged. Physical, digital, suddenly all of us are completely adept to bandwidth, to servers, how to book servers, what artists. Suddenly we're no longer dependent on music artists, no longer dance, comedy, one-man acts, engagement artists who can engage you on a digital platform. Those are the ones that we're looking for. And where do you find them? The artist management companies don't have those ideas. They don't have those opportunities. They don't have those artists available to you. On another front, if you look as a business entrepreneur, the last 5 to 10 years of your life and your work life and everything you've created could have been wiped out in the last 5 months. Don't bother about it. Don't kill yourself about it. There's nothing you can do about it. Look 2 years ahead. Invest in the future. Look 5 years ahead. Invest and work your energies to be able to provide solutions, options, business opportunities in that realm. One friend of mine was planning to start a music company 2 years hence, maybe 3 years hence. In the last 3 months, he's already launched it and has launched some 5-10 singles with different artists. Several businesses which were stillborn or planned for another day have been fast-tracked. So we've come 2 years ahead in that respect. Once you look at business, once you look at business opportunity, economic opportunity, you look at your wallet and say, how do I survive, etc., etc. I will tell you, you are on a runway. It's the runway of life. It's the runway of business. It's the runway of how much money do you have. Money is the only fuel for your aircraft. How long can you make that fuel last on that runway is your test. Last out long enough for you to have your plane take off. Because when your plane takes off, it'll fly. It'll have a smooth landing. It'll get to the next destination. Make sure you have fuel in your tanks. When it comes down to yourself, just remember, you're not alone. Physical distancing may be real, but connect with people across the board. People in your past life, people who you wanted to hear from, people who you wanted to reach out to and did not know how. Catch them on Twitter, catch them on Insta, catch them on their emails or whatever, and set up time. People will give you time. Spend time with people. Spend time with people because people need people. We are social animals who want to connect and communicate with each other. We require to believe in ourselves. Because in believing in ourselves, we realize our own inner power, our own inner self. For someone, yoga works. For another, meditation works. Someone chanting, someone running, someone exercising. Whatever it takes, find your inner self, find what makes you happy, find your mojo. What makes you happy will ensure that you are happy and you will spread happiness all around. You know, one of the worst things that has happened with this physical distancing and the pandemic, people wear masks. You can't see their smile anymore. Sometimes that mask has been used to disguise the frown and sometimes the sadness. So we, as responsible people, require to look for the person's mental state in what he's saying, the topics he's talking about, he's choosing to talk about, and what he relates to. Put yourself in the other person's shoes and try and understand what he must be going through. You are going through a mess, you're going through hell. You are not alone. I am not alone in what I'm going through. And by sharing with each other, by caring for each other and reaching out to each other, we probably will have solutions for each other too. A few years ago in our event industry association, the apex body EMA, we launched an initiative called We Care. We Care originally was about equality in the workplace among men and women. We Care was about sexual harassment. It was about the Vishaka Commission guidelines that were existent at that point, which now is converted into POSH guidelines and law. But it was long before Me Too came in. And the event industry took heart, began working with We Care. A helpline was created and launched, and it is managed by the We Care team at EMA. That helpline in the last few months has been used by many women to call and seek counsel, seek help. And that is good because in reaching out to somebody, in reaching out for help, you're actually taking the first step towards your own well-being. Last year, on another platform like Eventpreneur, we launched the Empower initiative with the Aditya Birla Group. Mrs. Neerja Birla came and spoke to the event industry about the need for mental health and to be concerned about it all the time. Truthfully, it was never too late. Who would believe that the pandemic would actually call and cause a mental epidemic of different sorts? I hate the day and I pray for the day never to come wherein we have our own Sushant Singh Rajput from the event industry. Knock off your mask. Don't hide behind your Zoom screen. Let others see you. Let others see your beautiful face, even if the makeup is not on and if your hair has not been cut in a long while. When on Zoom, when on such platforms, use the reaction button more often. Applaud others. celebrate others, celebrate the ideas of others, because just in that, we're connecting, celebrating, and making each other feel special. Steve Jobs' biographer quoted Steve Jobs as saying, if you just sit and observe, you will see how restless your mind is. If you try to calm it, it only makes it worse. But over time, it does calm. And when it does, there's room to hear more subtle things. That's when your intuition starts to blossom and you start to see things more clearly and be more in the present. Your mind just slows down and you see a tremendous expanse in the moment. You see so much time, you see so much more than you could have ever seen before. We live in these times, we live in very challenging times. And for me, there are times that redefine who we are. It's when the challenge is before you, that's when you define who you are by what you do and how you respond. So for us in the event industry, this is our defining moment. This is our most challenging moment. And we've got to reach out to our inner selves. We've got to reach out to each other. We've got to reach out and help each other, guide each other, find solutions for each other, and make way for a new sunrise. The new sunrise will come. The new sunrise is what you and me will create together. I'm delighted to have met with Rohini and Prakriti Poddar on this call. And I hope that Prakriti's volunteers and We Care and Empower, etc., can create a collaborative environment which can reach out to all of us and be available to everybody. I'm putting my hand up to seek help. I'm putting my hand up to offer help. So not just reach me, but I'm here to reach out to you too. Thank you, Lavina. Thank you, Rohini. Thank you, Ratika. Stay awesome.
Thank you so much, Sabbas. It was a great honor to have you here. And I hope that a whole lot of everyone who's on this call, everyone who's watching on Facebook, everyone who's going to be looking at this recording later, I'm just sure that they're all going to be inspired by this. And I hope that they do take that first step towards mental wellness. Thank you again for joining us today, and great pleasure to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you, and have an awesome session.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to quickly move on to my favorite person. What can I say? Brian Tellis is not just the founder of Fountainhead, that all of you know as a great agency, but I must tell you, I have had the privilege of sharing an office space with him way before all of this happened, and so many things. Journey has gone through a long way from then, but that has always been an honor for me. And I can tell you, I know that me and Brian, we may not speak every day, we may not speak every week, or even once in a year, but I'm 100% sure that whenever I pick up the phone and if I need some help, I have one person to kind of depend on. So that is Brian Tellis. Brian, so happy to have you here. It is such an honor to share the same screen space with you after a long time again. And just waiting to hear about what are your thoughts on everything, and what are we doing forward? What can we learn from you? What can we learn from Fountainhead? And please tell us.
Thank you, Lavina. You're most kind. Thank you for all the nice things you've said. It's going to be a challenge living up to all that you've said in your descriptive, but thank you. Thank you to everyone. I'm not going to go name by name, but thank you for having me over in this session. I do believe, just to reiterate what has been said, that this is a problem as big, if not larger, than the one we believe we are facing. Mind matters, mental health, mental well-being, you can call it whichever, use whatever adjectives you want. I do believe that it's a really large challenge that we face. And thank you very much for making an effort, this current one, in helping overcome this. I've known Sabbas for a lifetime, and he said, co-travelers. It's wonderful sharing space with Sabbas. It's just that when he speaks before you, he leaves nothing left, nothing else left to be said. I say this lightly, but thank you, Sabbas, for throwing light. I'm going to try and should I say, edit my thoughts around what Sabbas has rightly put forth, and see what we need to do in the going forward. So I want to start off by saying mental well-being is the most critical factor in today's day and age. It is truly the most, all of us, as much as we'd like to pretend otherwise, all of us need mental health, and most of all at a time like this. The good thing with me is I'm an eternal optimist. I often get teased for using the phrase, the glass is always half full, it's never half empty. And I'm happy to be teased about using that phrase because I truly believe that that is the case. One has to be optimistic about life. Cutting to the chase, let us look at the broad impact of current times. In my estimation, there are three broad areas that we need to take cognizance of. The first is the pandemic itself, the virus itself. And we're all, living in hope and prayer that sooner than later, the vaccine will be with us. And that, as we all know, will not just sort the issue of the virus. I think it will also sort another issue, which is, fear and perceptions that we've been kind of engulfed with. The second bit is the economy that has taken an absolute hammering. But like I said, I do believe that this is a temporary phase. I think all things must pass, and this one will as well. And we need to really work toward the future, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Another challenge that we face is perception and fear, like I said a little earlier. What I want to reiterate here, I firmly believe, and I don't need to say it, I think all of us will agree, that deep down in our DNA, we are social animals. We thrive on interaction. We thrive on each other, as was so well said earlier. And that will be the ultimate necessity. We will come together. We will, overcome all of this because we are social animals. I just want to map these three. Let's look a little further. Sabbas has spoken a lot about the generalities, about positivity, about looking forward. Let's come closer home to the experiential industry. As was said, we are at the nucleus of this problem. In a day and age when, social isolation is, the mantra, we talk about social aggregation in our business. I mean, we are right at the epicenter, so to speak, of this problem. We need to understand that sustainability is the need of the hour. Okay, I'm hitting some points straight away. We need to understand that sustainability is difficult, especially when it's financial sustainability, and we need to think about that. We need to really think about handling costs. That's a challenge. We need to actually look deep down and figure what are the costs that we're facing professionally in the experiential industry and see how we can overcome that. I think one of the things that doesn't work for us is also lead time before we do what we do, because perception plays a large part. The industry has come to a grinding halt. Okay. What can we do professionally, like was said earlier, to rise above? I always say the acronym FEAR, F-E-A-R, can stand for two things. It can stand for forget everything and run, F-E-A-R, or it could stand for face everything and rise. And obviously, the latter is more important. We need to really face everything and rise. Things will normalize, but financial stability, sustainability, cost management is extremely critical. So the first thing we need to do is to really look within and see how best we can create those efficiencies. Okay. Again, Sabbas mentioned earlier about physical meeting digital, and phygital is the new catchphrase, which is a part of our lives now. I just want to say that digital at this point in time is the immediate go-to, but we need to understand that it will augment who we are and what we do in the going ahead. So don't just look at it as, an immediate solution. Yes, it is an immediate solution, but it will augur well for the road ahead. So we must understand that we need to build, while we address the challenges at the moment, we need to use all those discoveries, those ideas to augment who we are and to make us bigger, better, and stronger in the going ahead. One of the key things that we sometimes tend not to do is to be proactive. We get so caught up, and it's not a criticism necessarily. We get so consumed and caught up in the now that we do not, as often as we need to, pull back and map the future as well. We need to proact. Okay. What do I mean when I say proact? Very often in our industry, we are treated as, the aggregator of services in a supply and demand situation. We need to do something. What will we need? We will need A, B, C, and D. Let's get an agency to actually put the A, B, C, and D and bring it to us in a single window. Is that who we are? Maybe it's who we were. Okay, but we need to think ahead. Some of us already have. We need to define our purpose. Who are we? What are we supposed to be bringing to the table? Let me just give you some examples. We need to make our service offerings more meaningful, is what I said. What can we do? We can actually become a strategist for the brand, albeit in our domain of expertise, which is experiential. Are we just aggregators of a supply chain? Or can we actually become core strategists or partners to the brand? Can we partner the brand further and actually bring effectiveness to what the brand is and what the brand means to the consumer? Can we? We need to really, really dig deep and actually redefine and rediscover who we are. I want to reiterate a term that says react in the short term, obviously, but proact for the long term. React in the short term, but proact for the long term. Work on strengthening our relationships, whether it is internally with the people that we spend the proverbial 8 hours of the day with at work, as also with the ecosystem and the universe around us. That could include clients and brands on the one side. It could include all our supply partners on another side. It could include communities or consumers that we need to marry brands and their philosophies to. We need to think deeper. We need to redefine who we are. Work on strengthening all of those relationships. These are times when, as was said earlier, when we need to really strengthen our bonds. I'm speaking of the professional front. I'll come to the personal front as well. I'll give you the example before I come to the personal front of Fountainhead. And I'm using a slightly dated example, but about proactivity. Initially, event management was what we were known for. And I speak not just for Fountainhead, I speak for, I'm sure, very, very many agencies. And then we thought deep and said, no, not just mandated events. We need to actually do activations, which is the last mile connect with the consumer. And then we said, no, we also need to create intellectual properties that aggregate communities and consumers together. And then we said, no, digital is the way to go. And I'm talking 7 to 8 years ago, maybe more. And we started, digital versions of who we are and what we do. All of this is proactivity. And of course, times are changing. These are just examples of the past. We need to kind of dig deep down, like I said, and reinvent, innovate on our services and our offerings. Let's move quickly to the personal front. One of the biggest challenges I face, and let me bring that front, is I find it very difficult, being the person I am, to separate the person I am, as a person and the person I am as a professional. I tend to blur the lines between personal and professional in a nice way. But I think one of my biggest learnings over these past 4 months or thereabouts is that one needs to understand that yes, while one is compassionate and empathetic and emotionally charged, one also has to be slightly clinical. And I say clinical as a good word, not a bad word. One needs to be slightly clinical, if not very clinical, when you look professionally at something and understand that even your business is a little baby that needs your love, that needs your caressing, that needs your care. And we must understand that. That was one of my big challenges. And I'd like to believe I'm slowly overcoming it. So separate the personal from the professional and focus on each one independently. I think we need to become a lot stronger. How do we become stronger as people? I think we need to use this time to enrich ourselves. I'll give you small examples. They may be cliched examples, but allow me to remind you. I think we need to go on a knowledge acquisition hunt. I think at this point in time, we have a lot more time than we used to have. I certainly have a fair bit more time than I used to have. I used to live a manic day, or should I be saying day and night? And I found very little time to do other things besides my work. Over the last 3 to 4 months, I must have consumed a few books and really beautifully consumed a few books. In the process, I've consumed a whole load of knowledge. So we need to imbibe knowledge. We need to really read. And when I say books, I don't only mean, stories. I mean actually knowledge imparting books and the likes as well. So empower yourself with further knowledge. I do believe at this point in time, mental health, as we're saying, but even physical health is of critical importance. It was mentioned earlier, but we need to look at ourselves. We need, if it's exercise that we need, if it is, like Sabbas said, mental exercise in whichever form, physical exercise in whichever form, we need to look after ourselves. We need to look after people. And empathy need to be really the pillars around which we operate in this day and time. And compassion needs to revolve around not just the people in our immediate family, them of course, but in the social ecosystem around us and in the professional ecosystem around us. I'd like to end by saying, like I said, the glass is always half full, it's never half empty. I've looked at the last 4 months, challenging as they have been, and I look at the future, challenging as it may seem, as an opportunity to rise. Like I said, I refuse to forget everything and run. I wish to face everything and rise, because I do believe that this too shall pass. Thank you again for the opportunity to bring some personal experiences and hopefully in the process a little bit of further insight into the challenges we're facing, more specifically in the experiential industry. I'm happy to be of any help even beyond this webinar, because I truly believe, like I said at the very top, that this is the primary challenge we're facing. The pandemic, the economy, perception and fear are triggers toward the largest challenge of being well mentally. And thank you once again to all of you who've made this possible. I think we need many more such to deal with the challenges we're facing. But thank you once again.
Thank you, Brian. As always, very insightful. But Brian, there is one question that I do need to ask you, which has come up to us from several people, which is everyone has this perception that these larger agencies are safe. They are well secured, and it's not affecting them as much. So just for the the general industry, I want you to just talk about this for a minute or two, and just share what has been happening with the larger agencies, such as Fountainhead.
Yeah, I have, my reaction really primarily is in 2 words: I wish. But it unfortunately isn't a fact. When we say large agencies, we're measuring them by way of, yes, maybe the P&L, the size of business, but we're also measuring them by way of size of cost. Because, in any business, when there is large opportunity for business, there is large necessity for investment. That investment could be in human resource, it could be in other resources. So I think it's a fallacy to say that large agencies are not affected. Allow me to say with a very, very, very heavy heart that many agencies, including ours, have had to make some really, really hard emotional decisions. I don't wish to get into the micro details, but that's what I meant when I said separate the personal from the professional. Decisions that we've had to make, and I know for a fact other large agencies have had to make, have been very difficult, and they've been very hard. In fact, I'd like to believe that larger agencies in a situation like this face larger problems. I did speak of sustainability. When there's a cost of 100, there's a certain effort required to create sustainability. When there's a cost of 100,000, obviously to that ratio, it makes the task that much more difficult. It doesn't mean that larger agencies have stashes of sustainability, be that commercial or otherwise, stocked away. Maybe to some extent they do, but don't forget that the costs, if the turnover is 10x, the costs are, believe you me, also 10x, at the very best 9x. So we are talking about no one is spared. I mean, I'll go one beyond. Forget about agencies that are large or perceived to be large. It's corporates that are many times X the size of large agencies that are taking a hammering as well. This crisis, financial crisis, has gone way beyond size, way beyond industry. There are, of course, some industries that have been spared a little bit more than some other industries. Obviously, that's subjective to the product they put out. But I just want to say, and say it emphatically, that there may be degrees of variance. I'm not saying there aren't, but I think it's a fallacy that large agencies have not been affected. Like I said, I believe large agencies have needed to make harder, emotionally and otherwise, harder decisions. I'm not looking for any additional empathy towards these large agencies. It's the price one pays for scale, and such is life. Yeah? But I hope I've answered the question, Lavina, at least to some extent.
Absolutely. I just wanted everyone who's here and who's watching to know that they're not going through this alone, though we are all much smaller, but we're still all in this kind of together. We're all going through this together, and there's no large, small, it doesn't make any difference anymore. We're all on an equal playing field. So thank you, Brian, for all your insights. And I'm sure that this has inspired a whole lot of people. They will start thinking a lot more, and they're going to start acting a lot more. And that is really what we're looking for here. Thank you so much for joining us, Brian. And
you're more than welcome. And like I said, I am happy to help whenever and however many times it's required, especially in the area that we're dealing with today. But thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, everyone. So we move on to another speaker that we have here. Very, very happy to welcome Mr. Will Travis. Now, this pandemic has not affected only India. We are not just here. It's not just us. It's a global concern. It's a global crisis. So we thought that it'll be really nice to have an international perspective, find out what's happening all over the world in the industry. To give you all a little background, Will has been an avid brand builder for over 27 years now, and is now the CEO of Elevation Barn. It's a company that brings leaders together from diverse platforms and puts them together and helps them work together to solve each other's business and personal issues, right? If I'm right, Will. And yeah, so let's hear from you, Will. Very, very happy to have you here, first of all, and thank you so much for taking time out to come here and address this audience with us.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Thumbs up?
perfect.
Okay, awesome. I was going to do a kind of a beautiful Bali backdrop, but then I realized I had one, so I've kept it. So I hope you don't mind. Beautiful opportunity to share some thoughts, and I thank you. I haven't got a script. I just thought I'd maybe cover off some of the things that that would help other people. I spent 27 years of my life elevating and propelling the confidence in products and services so that people like us would fall in love with them and buy them. Phones, cars, all that kind of stuff. And I realized 3 years ago, I read an article, and it's quite timely now. Deloitte published an article saying 91% of people are unhappy at work. And now we don't have the opportunity to be at work, so that's probably a bit of a game changer straight off there with a thought. But that thought really made me feel quite sad that the model of work was broken. And I realized that the clarity of purpose in individuals was also extremely clouded because there was so much disruption going on in the world. This was back then, 3 years ago. And when things become cloudy, you start to lose that confidence in what you can do. And you start being reactive, and you start being confident in things that may not be the right way to operate. You may treat people badly through fear in how you operate in business. You may disconnect yourselves from the teams, so you don't really know how and where they're operating. So you become unconnected from the force that is actually helping you. And so I realized then that I needed to sort of pivot, take the power of story, which is what I do. I'm a brand builder. Story is everything. It determines your belief in religion, in money, in wars, whatever it is, and apply that power of positive belief to individuals. And I started with leaders because I felt that if I could start with leaders from diverse industries, then they would pass on the right kind of mindset to the people who work for them. I feel things like the Me Too issues, Black Lives Matter issues, all these key critical things that we're facing at the moment are often led because leaders are unclear of who they are as a person, unclear of what they should be doing, and unclear on how they should execute themselves in not only the workplace, but also in life. And then we get struck by this good wake-up call that at the moment, it's not just our workplace and our personal lives that are in trouble. We're becoming addicted to technology. We're becoming addicted to things that aren't right. But our planet's in trouble, that we have a kind of a 10-year window to sort things out, address it, and make a change in the world. And therefore, we've really had a bit of a wake-up call, I feel, in the last 4 months. It's a tough time. We've all been through tough times. Those that are probably on this call of an age that we've experienced market recessions, we've experienced mental health issues individually. We may have been through a divorce or had a problem in a relationship. We've been fired from jobs. We are used to having tough times. We forget that. We forget that we've had a lot of bad times. We're always optimistic as a race. Otherwise, we'd all lie on the floor and curl up and give in. But we really are built to recover and to grow and solve things and go forwards. And so this is an absolutely spectacular time to sort of take charge and have a look at what do we have? What do we possess in our hands? Because we're all born with what I call an unfair advantage. You all have an absolute incredible superpower. The way that we live our lives, the jobs that we've got, the people that we hang out with, layer after layer on top of who we really are. And we end up losing faith and belief and understanding and knowledge of who we really are. And we start acting not from who we are, but from who people think we are. And I think this is a great time to actually take that backpack of life off and truly reset, re-engage, and reapproach things. I was thinking the other day, somebody said to me, what's the biggest obstacle for where you are at the moment? And I was thinking about it. My guttural reaction was realistically to say me. Me, because if I'm negative, I'm the first person to hear it. I'm closest. How I act is my choice. What I do for my family and my friends and my businesses is me. But then the word me stood out to a different level. I realized that me had a bigger meaning, that me stood for money, that money was often the driving force of my panic, my worries, my issues, my challenges. If I could address that and maybe downsize or predict or not spend that little bit extra that I could save, I would be far more stable. I realized that ego was also a huge thing, that if I actually put my ego down and centered around who I really was and stopped being bullish and started being the person that was underneath that, the balanced person, I would be far more successful. And then I added another E on the end to it, which was expectancy. And I realized that the majority of the decisions, the challenges, the issues I was facing were my expectancies of myself. What, I have to do less or act differently or change things? That the expectancies other people had on me were driving me to operate in certain ways. And you know what? When things are going tough, who cares? Nobody really matters to you that much other than your family. The reason you put on this planet was to create the next generation. Is if you lower your expectancies, drop your ego and try and change how you're addressing money, you're in a far more stable place. And so this time has been an incredible chance for opportunity. And so I've been uniting leaders together to help them get clarity of purpose and realizing that if they leave their egos and their jobs at the door and their expectancies on themselves and take that expectancy off, they can help each other at levels that are unsurpassable. When I went into this crisis phase, which we really are, I was quite shocked. And I wrote a post and shared it on LinkedIn about these are the 6 things that I think you should do to be prepared for what's coming up in the marketplace. And you can look at those 6 in your own time. And the hits went through the roof because people really wanted somebody to help. When I went through terrible times in 2008, in the late 1900s, I didn't know who to turn to. My wife would support me. I could tell her I was an axe murderer and she'd still say, I've got your back. Don't worry about it. I'll come visit you in prison. You'll be okay. You know, that's not the kind of support I needed. My friends would support me just because they're my friends, but it was the people that helped me look around corners that could help me smoke jump these challenges that are the people that are really important right now. People that will say, you know what, I've stood on that landmine before. I've been in this issue before. Let me help you. Let me hold your hand. And being vulnerable, often many of us as leaders in our businesses, that's seen as a weakness. That's pathetic. We're herd animals. Leadership is a new philosophy when it involves sharing and helping and supporting each other versus egos and chest beating. Those days have gone, and they should be gone. We're not built to operate like that. That's a capitalist system of control in every walk of life. It came home to me when the doors and our mouths were covered and the airports were stopped. And I was here in Bali in Indonesia, where I'd moved to because I wanted to be in a mindset of community. I've been here for several years where people share and support each other daily by the hour. It doesn't matter on their job, they support each other. Excuse me. And my 2 daughters were at university in Scotland and they said, Dad, we're coming over for spring break. I said, there's a pandemic potential issue and something happening. And they said, well, what's our choices? We can stay here in Scotland in little places. We can't even go in the pub. You know, what's the point of being in Scotland if you can't drink? We'll come to Bali. We'll spend time with you. And so they came out to be with me. And it was the best thing ever. Many of you that have children have probably reflect and will support me in this thought. But when you're listening to the minds of young people, they haven't been through a crisis before. They don't understand the obstacles that we're facing. They have fresh thoughts and fresh perspectives and ideas that are so relished. And I think we've lost sight of that. I came to Bali because people smile constantly. Well, in New York, where I lived for 25 years, good luck getting a smile unless you just bought a Ferrari off somebody. But people here smile consistently. You walk around with children. It's interesting now, the kids don't smile because they're wearing masks everywhere. And I'm called Corona. Hey, Corona! You know, they're still waving. It's quite nice. And I'm waving back. But the smiles have been held back. And I realize there is a metaphor with this. We are in a period, a phase, an opportunity where it's time to stop talking. This last 4 months, I have not posted on social media. I haven't been beating my chest about some point of view, some perspective. I stopped talking because it's time to listen. Time to listen to the planet. Time to listen to our health. Time to look in that mirror where you can't escape anymore because you can't just leave to go on a plane or go to the office. Look in that mirror and go, who's the real me? What's my legacy going to be? What is my opportunity? In Bali, I didn't know that until I realized that when I was talking with my children, I had to look at the world with fresh eyes. This is an incredible opportunity to look at all these things with fresh eyes. And Matubara has become my new thing. I don't speak Bahasa. I failed at that language thing. But I realized that what they stood for was really important. This is that chance to look at it in a different way. We have an opportunity to step back from the wall of issues that are facing us. When I failed all my exams, every single one of them, to a spectacular level when I was 18, I sat in the car with my stepfather. And I said to him, he said to me, how did you do? I said, to be honest, Dad, I've let you down. I've let you down heavily. I have failed everything, which was hard for him because he was a man who was a headmaster. He'd have taken on 4 children. My real father had passed away at 6 months. And he'd taken on these children to help them see. He'd taken them on to give them a better education. There am I failing every single exam. And not only that, my mother had died 3 months prior, so the guy was already on his knees. This was news that he did not need. And he turned to me and he said, Will, you will face walls for the rest of your life. It's a fact. We all do. He said, the challenge is that you need to be able to look over that wall or around that wall or under that wall. There is always a way past it. He said, if you realize that, it does not matter the obstacles that life throws at you, you will get past them. We are just facing another wall right now. It's just another wall. The key thing is to be able to step back from that wall and realize that there's a way over, around, or under it. When he sat in the car, he said, remember that wall, because I was at boarding school, remember that wall that's around your boarding school? I said, yes. He said, you told me a story about 1.5 years ago, about climbing over that wall and meeting your first girlfriend and having a kiss and having a pint of beer. I was quite embarrassed. I'd forgotten I told him that story because it didn't seem timely at the moment. But he said that wall back then was not an obstacle. That wall was part of the excitement, the adventure. It was just a hurdle in the path of life. And I think what we're facing now, I understand it is absolutely crushingly hard. Many of us are going to go bankrupt. Many of us are going to go through marital issues, health issues, all these different obstacles, these walls, but you have to realize they're just hurdles. That if you lift your head up from these damn screens, which are saving us right now, but when you can, look ahead, look sideways and work out, who can I elevate today? Who can I help today? be it the piece of advice I've just discovered. Nobody shared with me in 2008 the way to get past the obstacles of the market crash, the IT crash, 9/11. The news was all selling bad news. The news that was being promoted as positive was paid for. It was very hard. We don't know who to believe. But if we actually can look sideways and look to people that we can help, then we can really get there. And there's one technique that I think would also really help is during the market recessions and the tough times with my global advertising agency that I had then, I had 600 people, designers of the best walk of life, incredible talents in every capacity. We were working on the Adidas All-In campaign, an Absolute Vodka campaign, and Facebook, and doing concept cars. I had to close 3 of those 5 offices and let those people go. And I cried. It was hard. They were humans. They were people I loved that supported me in their vision. I had to shrink the team down to nearly 30 people from 600. But I knew every single person there was walking their own destiny, that they would be fine. They would find a way. I'd given them a great career that they could build off, and they have. And I knew I had to do it for the longevity of the business and where we could go. But during that time, I was headstrongly committed to ensure that we allowed time to think. Every Friday for half the day, I would ensure that we spent unpolluted time with all the things that were going on in the world to create. And we published books on experimental creativity, books that allowed us a sacred place to escape to create and show what we could do. Nothing will make you think better and smarter and more resourcefully than a crisis. It's like falling off a bicycle. Things go in slow motion and you can react and change and pivot if you allow yourself to do it. You have to allow yourself a pod of creative time to think, what if? Take all those expectancies off your back so your wings can spread and you can fly to heights that you can achieve without the challenges of the short term. Explore. And I'm a true believer that we have the opportunity to do that, because from those moments, great things will happen. I've pivoted as my business. My business was leading leadership retreats. No one's doing retreats and gathering, but we turned it into virtually elevated. You can get on an elevation bound virtual retreat. Instead of 3 solid days, it's 6 half days. We bond and we take the silent time of not being on Zoom to really reflect and sit in the comfort of our homes and take on the challenges and come back and plus each other and support each other. It excels. I've taken this time to launch an internship with young leaders at universities that lost their internships, that lost their opportunities of jobs. And I'm building a new platform of elevating young leaders by young leaders. Because there's one thing for sure, they may be 25% of our population now, but they're 100% of our population in the future. Not listening to them and engaging with them, lost. We do not know where the world will be in a few years' time. And I've taken this time to start a new group that when things are over, we will have pods to catalyze and propel each other forwards. Places of escape in the mountains of Bali where we can sit as a group of 6 to help each other see around these corners. Because it's the creative camaraderie of supporting each other, helping each other, that will really get through this. Our international network, we are no different than where you are in India, in Bali, in Israel, in London, in South Africa. I have over 200 leaders as part of my group in 36 industries in 17 countries, and we are all having the exact same issues. To add to that, the global internship of the young leaders, the questions, the challenges they are facing, and are trying to understand their mental health, their physical health, their friendship health, their work health, their fiscal health, are identical to the challenges we're facing in our 40s, 50s, and 60s. We are born from the same cloth, regardless of the color of our skin and the lives that we've lived. And this is a spectacular time just to share our thoughts, because they are absolutely relevant to everybody everywhere in the world right now. There may be climatic changes or political changes or different things that affect you everywhere else, but we are all going through the exact same thing. And I know it because I'm on the calls with these friends every single day. This is a spectacular opportunity to pivot, to take off that weight of perception of who you were, what your job had made you be, what your friendships had made you pretend you were, what relationships were smothering you, and spread those wings out and have a fresh opportunity and help each other primarily to start. India is the foundation, is the land of story. It's such a romantic, rich, high-sense place. It's an absolute honor to get the opportunity to spend time and touch the land that you all walk, often without thought. For us, it is so special around the world. Spirituality isn't something you practice, it's something that you are born with and you live.